My name is Whitney Walsh, and I live in unincorporated Marietta, so you, Mr. Washington, are the one who governs where I live.
Is that
And-
out to the east?
And I came across something the other day that said, the Chuck Washington Campaign 2020 contributed $1,400 to a Republican PAC in Orange County. Why would you do that?
I didn't do that.
So you're saying the document's incorrect?
I'm
Not contributing your money to a Republican PAC. Where was it?
It was to continuing the Republican Revolution in Newport Beach.
I don't know what that is, Mayor. I'm sorry. I don't
Is there
know.
somebody at your office I could follow up with? Because that's what I have here.
I could guess that maybe it's a slate that I
A
bought a blanket.
Republican slate?
Well,
And I have to imagine that your money was, what funds your campaign is Democratic donors, and it seems that campaign is contributing to Republicans.
It's a nonpartisan office, so I don't accept just contributions from Democrats. Republicans
But
contribute money.
please, I can't imagine that a Republican would fund a Democrat.
Well, they vote on a Democrat. It's a nonpartisan office.
I'm gonna interject here. I'd like to avoid as much back and forth as possible. If we can just keep it to questions that can be answered, and then we can continue to get through the rest of the questions.
If there's somebody I could follow up with at your office.
You can, well, not my office, because my office doesn't do political work. So if you want to reach out to my email, and I'll try to get to the bottom of it and answer your question for you.
And what is your email?
ChuckWashington2020@gmail.com.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit of housekeeping on that. If you want to have more back and forth on that, feel free to talk to them afterwards. We just need to get through the several questions in the time that we have. Okay, so Brian was up next according to that ordering. So I'm actually just going to come over here and I'll just give him my microphone. Well, I'll give Canada the microphone.
Thanks, and I applaud everybody for running, first off. My question is, for all three of you, do any of you currently, or have you had in the past, any union endorsements or contributions that have been working for you? And if so, can you please explain them?
I don't have any union endorsements or contributions. I was a late filer and went through the Candidate Academy with the Inland Empire Labor Council, and they chose to issue no endorsement for our race.
Previously, I was endorsed by that group in 2016. I was also endorsed by, in 2016 by SEIU and LIUNA, and largely I would give them most of the credit for getting me elected. LIUNA is supporting me again because I've supported them in getting a contract that pays them a livable wage and provides them with improved health care benefits. I think in 2016 I was also endorsed by RSA, the Sheriff's Association. I did not apply for their endorsement this time around, so I'm not getting endorsed by them.
I have not been endorsed by any, just like Courtney, our race was deemed no endorsement, but I have worked with unions in the past. I worked with the United Farm Workers, the union of Cesar Chavez, trying to get the farm workers of ANZA unionized in the cannabis industry, and I'm currently reaching out to CTA, trying to unionize VIP kid teachers who are being laid off as misclassified workers due to AB 5, and we're trying to get all those teachers into a teachers union. So, yeah, pretty much.
Okay, who is the next? I think, yeah, K-Tan was up next, and then we'll go to the back again. So, and then Steve as well. So.
Okay. I have a question for Courtney. I'd like to hear about your.
Edison's here too.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Regarding your work with veterans and some of your plans for homelessness and vets.
Oh, wait,
I don't mean to be a mic hog. Thank you, Kate. So, as a veteran, as a female veteran, I've faced some different experiences, especially in the Marine Corps, where it's only 8% female, and that took me out of my comfort zone and quite out of my bubble. And I learned to roll with the punches, and I learned to make the best of it, and I don't take no for an answer, and I have a thick damn skin. So let me tell you that right now. When it comes to my advocacy for veterans, I apply the same principles. I fight for tooth and nail, especially when it comes to veterans homelessness, PTSD, and military sexual trauma. And what I deal with in Progressive Veterans of Riverside County right now, we have an initiative that we're working on with Congressman Takano's office to address the mistreatment or expand treatment of PTSD diagnosed, service-related PTSD diagnosis for combat veterans, to include less opioids and more alternative treatments or treatment plans that are holistic, that they feel that they're really taking a part in. So that's number one we're working on. And number two, we're going to begin initiatives for military sexual trauma as well. And I'm gonna be reaching out to Mike Levin's office on that issue. And we also are featuring the Lambda Archives to give an oral history of the LGBTQ work that veterans have done who are LGBTQ in the history of the military at one of our upcoming meetings. So I take this work very seriously, and I don't attach my name to a lot of things, and I do intend to remain a voice for veterans in the county. Now, to address the second part of your question, which is homelessness and mental health issues, I propose that we bring in an idea that's working really well for San Diego County, because I am not a reinvent the wheel person. I am a work smarter, not harder person. And what San Diego County is doing right now is using PERT teams, and they are embedded psychiatrists, clinicians, and professionals that go out and make contact with law enforcement officers, and they are able to work to get those individuals to the services that they need. It's a winning solution, it's bearing fruit in San Diego County, and I want to bring it up here. Does that answer your question? Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll start moving the mic back again. So Steve will have this question, and then Chris will be up next.
I want to hear your views on public safety in Riverside County.
Who?
In all aspects. Supervisor Washington.
Before I get to that, I want to just touch on a couple of things, because I think my challengers are trying to identify themselves as significantly different from the mold. And I want to point out, and I don't usually go down this path, but I'm the first and only African American mayor in Murrieta, the first and only African American mayor in Temecula, the first and only African American Riverside County supervisor. And I'm very proud because I have several of my staff members here tonight. Michelle, Opal, Claudia's in the back, Olivia just retired, and Sarah's here. I didn't see Sarah, but I'm the first and only county supervisor that has an all-female staff. So I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk, and I've been doing that. When it comes to public safety, thank you for the question. I think it's the foundation of why we all live here in this area. We live in safe communities. We live in safe communities in Murrieta and Temecula. And if I can't provide you with a safe living environment, all the other stuff is kind of fluff. So that's where I start, creating safe communities. When I got elected to the Murrieta City Council, they whispered around me, Chuck Washington, he's such a liberal. All he ever talks about is schools and parks. Well, I'm happy to report that I've had an influence in this region. Now they think that that's okay, talking about schools and parks. And I think I had an influence on a lot of the people's thinking in this region. So yes, I support public safety so we can create safe communities. I support schools, I support education. In addition to partnering with the homeless to provide behavioral health services by way of Dr. Matt Chang I mentioned earlier, but I'm partnering with school districts. We have a partnership with Murrieta Unified School District and Hemet Unified School District to bring behavioral health counseling to the school campuses. And we also discovered that a lot of the dysfunction that kids are experiencing, that teachers recognize at school, is because of things that are going on at home. So not only are we bringing that behavioral health counselor to the school, we're bringing a social worker so that we can heal those children. I have served ever since I've been on the board as the First Five on the First Five Commission. I'm going to be the new chair of First Five because I'm so committed to early childhood development, 0 to 5. If we don't get those kids ready, we don't take care of those kids, if we don't embrace them in those first 5 years, when they get to kindergarten, they're broken. So all this talk about, well, public schools are great. Yes, they are. But we've got to get them ready for kindergarten, and that happens in early childhood.
Okay, did we get to Chris yet? Because I know he was up there, and then.
Question for everybody, but you want to cut
Public
it?
safety.
I haven't spoken
Oh.
on it, dude.
If you'd like to answer that question, yeah, that would be great.
Yes, yeah, again, I've worked with law enforcement in Anza, and right now I just finished my training for the homeless point in time count, which is a great thing that happens here in Riverside County. I can give you kudos for that one. And again, I plan to partner with the sheriffs and city police departments because they need to be streamlined. One of my greatest critiques of the Board of Supervisors with the whole cannabis thing that I mentioned was the fact that they are spending millions and millions of dollars on eradication efforts. Now, that's problematic to me because if this would have been a licensing issue, the sheriffs themselves, Sheriff Captain Purvis said that it would have been easier, their job would be easier. If out of 2,000 farms, you permit half of them or a tenth of them, that's a tenth that they don't have to go out there. Now in Anza, and again, remember, Board of Supervisors, we're not running for mayor of Temecula. The Board of Supervisors cover a large area. Our district in particular is Jeme, Murrieta, San Jacinto, Temecula, Idlewild, Anza, Owanga, Pinyon Pines, a large portion of unincorporated area where the supervisor is the de facto mayor. The supervisor is the mayor of the unincorporated areas that do not have a voice for themselves. So as communities, we would like to see more enforcement as far as police response time. We have a very slow police response time unless it is to cut down cannabis plants. To me, it's just a waste of our sheriff's efforts, of their resources, and our taxpayer dollars. So I would work to streamline that in particular.
Yeah, I was not under the impression it was a all Canada issue, but we're gonna take it as such, so.
Thank you. I have public safety is a complex issue, as we all know, and there are a lot of factors that go into it, socioeconomic factors, poverty, etc. So it doesn't live in a silo, and we can't treat it as such. So to drill down to the basic tenets of my philosophy on public safety, I take a balanced approach, leaning heavily on prevention and preventative programs, because I believe that we need to nip the root causes of crime in the bud, rather than spend our money on enforcement, etc. Additionally, I was, dismayed to learn that we have disparate coverage of sheriff's deputies throughout the county. I was recently at the Temecula Valley Wine Growers Association where Officer DeForest introduced himself and said to everyone there who was a representative of the winery that he was there at their disposal. And I don't think that that's appropriate. I don't think that I, as a Temecula citizen, have a deputy at my disposal. I would like that, perhaps, but unfortunately, I don't get that courtesy or that luxury. So I think we need to reassess where we're sending our resources to make sure that we're sending our resources where they belong, where they can be best utilized, and focus heavily on making sure that we are preventing crime rather than punishing people. Does that answer your question?
She's done.
I'll allow it if all the other candidates are all right with that.
Sure.
If the candidates would like him to rebut,
I'm not lying. I was there at the meeting.
No,
Edison, are you okay with that?
I'm not saying she's lying. I
Okay,
think
30 seconds.
you need to understand the difference between a contract city, because Myriad has its own police force, so does Hemet. San Jacinto and Temecula are contract cities, so they contract with the sheriff. So when you see a sheriff deputy in the unincorporated part of the county, that's coming out of the county's budget. When you see a sheriff's deputy in a city like Temecula inspector is paying for that deputy. There's a difference.
Okay, this will be our last question, as we only have about a minute and a half left, according to Steve's count. So Sandra, saw her hand raised there.
Oh,
Hi, this question is for Tisa Rodriguez.
No.
Gotta ask this question, it's really critical.
Nope, we're gonna address that question later. This is for the candidates that are currently up here right
Okay,
now.
but we need to know if the county central committee is going to be endorsing in these races.
They are.
They are, so will that override the vote here tonight?
Our endorsement, whatever we make here tonight, if we come to a determination, if it is in conflict with theirs, ours will be a local endorsement. On our materials, we must distinguish that it is only the endorsement of the Tacoma Democrats and not to be construed as the endorsement of the Riverside County Democratic Party. That clear? Okay, cool. And she's nodding there, so, Jenny's hand's raised. Oh, Chris! We can't forget about Chris. Get the mic back there. This will be the last question.
okay, this question is for Chuck, but I'd like a response from the other two candidates also. I'd like to know how much money has been spent actually on the cannabis raids for 2019, seeing we have a $22 million deficit in this county. And then I would like to know if the county's ever approved that amount of money to fight crystal meth, because that's an epidemic that we have not voted yes for, but cannabis, I think everybody in here has voted twice yes for. So I'd like to know why you voted every time to not create jobs while spending millions of our taxpayers' dollars on raids that have never stopped illegal cannabis grow since the 90s, and California wouldn't have been doing it. So I'd like to hear other options of how to fix it and how much money we've actually spent.
Good question.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, I was directing it. Hey, you want to answer it for me? So, there are 10 elected officials at Riverside County. 5 of them are the Board of Supervisors. The other 5 are the sheriff, the DA, the auditor controller, the assessor, and the tax collector. The sheriff, as an elected, has a budget. His budget is approved in general by the Board of Supervisors. But we cannot tell the sheriff how to spend his money. It is his money once it's approved by the board. So when the sheriff decides to go to Anza, and he's doing that because he's compelled by a vast majority of the people who reside in Anza, and he's doing raids on very large illegal grow activities. He's cutting down 8 or 10,000 plants in a raid, and I know this because I get a report from him. I don't tell him what to go do. Those people are also poisoning the water up there. They're using illegal pesticides that are toxic, and it's seeping into the groundwater. This is what we hear from the Cahuilla and the Ramona tribe up there. It's also what we hear from many of the locals, that these illegal grows are stealing electricity and stealing water, and they're poisoning local water. So if Chris has a problem with the sheriff's activities, Chris should go and take that up with the sheriff, who is an elected official.
I asked why you voted against it every time too. That is you.
Nope. All right. So my plan is, again, yes, there are very harmful
get 'em.
pesticides. Carbofuran has been detected in some of those farms, but guess how many legal farms carbofuran has been detected in California? 0. Because if it's regulated, you can come in here. Literally, I work with a group of farmers called the High Country Growers Association, and this group of farmers advocated for inclusive legislation, for social equity programs. Right now, you can grow up to 125 acres of hemp for a $900 permit. Okay, it smells the same, it looks the same, it's literally the same plant. It's also called cannabis sativa, something else instead of whatever cannabis is. But the point is, it's the same plant, uses the same amount of water, and it smells the same. All of the nuisances of illegal cultivation go away with inclusive regulation. Okay, you have thousands of farms. After you cut them down, most of these in June were replanting the next day. Because, and a lot of these farmers are going indoors now. They used to be outdoor farmers, and now they're stressing out our grid because they're renting out properties, they're trashing out properties because they're unregulated. If given the chance, we have to trust people, because without people, we're nothing. Okay? okay? And if we trust people to come into the legal system, if we give them a legal system with low barriers to entry, that allows our community to thrive. It eases the stress on the sheriff's department, and it creates jobs in the community, which we desperately need in the unincorporated areas. So that's why I advocate for inclusive cannabis legislation. And for the record, I don't know how much was spent, but I know how much was destroyed. The sheriff announced he destroyed $390 million worth of cannabis products. Okay, so I understand some of that might not have been legal cannabis, some of them may have been tainted. But if you have a valley that can produce that amount of cannabis, you tax that at 5%, and your $20 million deficit is gone in a day.
Yep.
All right. Obviously, it's not gonna happen in a day. I'm realistic in that sense, but you understand the gist of it. So that's what I'm advocating for. Courtney.
Oh, you don't want it? You don't want Chris to support it?
I don't support candidates. I support platforms.
We like them that way.
I'm not sure if it's me. So I'm gonna echo Edison, regulate, tax, legislate, and bring it into the sunlight, and especially unionize. Let's get some union cannabis grows, union shops, union
Yes.
dispensaries, and make sure that we are making the shops and the growers into living wage industries as well.
Yes.